Good morning and welcome to CAD-1's Autodesk Design Review webinar. My name is Stan Henne. I'm the Business Development Manager at CAD-1, but more importantly we have Michael Calkins, Registered Architect, who will be presenting today. And Michael is also an Autodesk Certified Instructor and Technical Specialist here at CAD-1 and a great guy to know. So this is a good webinar today. This is design review is kind of one of the, I'd say, the little known secrets in a lot of circles as to what you can really do with it and the power it really has. And then the fact that we won't be getting into any mobile capabilities really today, but the fact that there is a mobile version for tablets and iPads and so forth makes it an even more powerful tool. So Michael, what do you want to kick it off with here?
So let's go through a couple things here. We, for those, in case anybody's attending here that doesn't have the right settings on GoToMeeting, we always put up this slide just for a few moments to make sure everybody's, in case anybody's not hearing us. So if everyone could please, over on the GoToMeeting console, if you click the little raise your hand icon, looks a little bit different now than it does in this image, but that lets us know that people are in fact able to hear our voices. Looks like we're good there. So
that people are clicking.
Okay. So
Good.
A couple other things here real quick.
Yeah, there's a minimized console, and then most importantly on that slide is the ask questions. Type in your questions. We'll try and get them answered in context and so forth.
Yep.
So the next a couple little things we want to make you aware of, and typically every year we've held a Customer Appreciation Day, and we are very grateful to our customers for all of the business they give us and the loyalty they've shown us over the years. We've decided to expand that a little bit this year and really bring in some interesting guest speakers. We're calling it our Design Vision and Innovation Conference. And the reason for that is because there's so much innovative thinking around technology right now, the design technologies, not necessarily moving away, but expanding outward from typical CAD programs to mobile and cloud-based programs and tool sets. So we've invited in a gentleman from the Autodesk Cloud Vice President of Cloud Technologies Office, and then Sean Hurley, who are both kind of futurists within Autodesk, who will really have the opportunity to talk about the new directions Autodesk is going. Lynn Allen will be there, and she's great and always entertaining, and will moderate the day. And then Pete Southwood and Scott Main, both from Autodesk, will be talking about some of the new directions in both infrastructure, civil, geospatial technologies, and building technologies. It's a free day. All you need to do is sign up. So we hope you will do that, and that'll be a lot of fun.
Also check out our website, cad-1.com/events for other webinars. We have all of our webinars listed there. So
right.
We'll be doing more. We do an AutoCAD-based one every month. We have Revit. I know there's quite a few people attending today that are probably Revit users as well. So check out our website.
Michael, I don't know if you have a slide for it. On June 18th as well, we have Phil Bernstein. Phil is a FAIA, or a fellow with AIA, and also is by many is considered one of the fathers of the BIM movement. And Phil will be in town. We are sponsoring a talk by him on June 18th in the evening from 6 to 8 at University of Denver, and he will be talking about the future of technology and deliverables in the building industry. So that's a real interesting talk. We had a chance to hear it about a month ago at a conference, and we invited Phil out to give the talk to people that are interested here in the Rocky Mountain region.
Yep. There's info on our website for that as well.
Yep.
All right, so let's get to the subject at hand here, which is design review. What are we going to talk about today?
There seems to be a little lag.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of lag here. So what we're going to talk about today is design review, and really what we're talking about is the use of the file format DWF. That's the file that's the file type and the file extension that Design Review is created to read. I'm going to show you later that it actually will open PDFs as well. But DWF and DWFX is what we're going to be working with. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we should use these. We'll talk about what the difference is between DWF and DWFX. There's not a whole lot. There's a little trick about what the X represents there. We'll talk about outputting DWF from AutoCAD. And actually, I went ahead and I'm going to include Revit as well, because when I started looking at the attendee list this morning, I saw that there are a few names that I happen to know are definitely using Revit as well, or probably interested in using this from the BIM communication workflow. So we'll take a look at Revit really quickly as well. We're going to take a look at that DWF in Design Review. Then we'll take a look at viewing the markups, or viewing the DWFs and creating markups. There's a bunch of cool tools for creating red lines, essentially. And then we'll take a look. We'll go back into AutoCAD. We'll round trip that back to AutoCAD, and I'll depending on time, I'll show how it works in Revit as well. I know, a lot of this is typically an AutoCAD-based one, but since we're kind of diverging from AutoCAD solely here, I'm going to go ahead and show the Revit tools there. And we'll talk about a few other little tricks along the way that are helpful to know and to take advantage of when using DWF and Design Review.
And just so you know, this isn't solely targeted at Revit, but we've had a lot of people ask about it in relation to Revit. And this program is available and well used for civil or infrastructure, map, so forth and so on. So please take what you can and use it across the board.
Okay, so let me get something set up here real quick. I'm switching around. I got a whole bunch of things open here. The GoToMeeting always causes my computer to run just a little bit slower than I'm used to. So, it's causing my computer to run extremely slow today.
Yes,
so I apologize for that.
We're still on this.
Yeah, so I've got to pause here for a second so I can get. There we go. All right, so let's talk about the use of DWF a little bit. The main reason we see people using DWF these days is really for improving paperless communication. I guess is probably the really major reason we see people using it. It's a great communication tool, and it prevents you from having to constantly print every single thing that you want to send to somebody else. The old workflow was print the drawing and transmit it in some way to the recipient by courier, by fax. That was the olden days. Now, eventually we got to the point where we could email PDFs, and now we have this DWF, and we have Design Review. So DWF really, you can kind of consider it as a stand-in for PDF. You would use it in many of the cases where you would use PDF. And I understand that there's a lot of people who've developed workflows around things like Bluebeam, which is a fantastic tool for exchanging data and monitoring red lines and that kind of thing in PDF. But some people are really comfortable with the Autodesk interface, and that's great, because so we have Design Review now to use. And actually, Design Review has been around for a number of years, but it seems to be getting a good foothold in the last few years. So we might use DWF instead of PDF. It's an electronic format. It's like an electronic print. And it's great because you can attach emails. You can use things like Buzzsaw or other FTP and data exchange, Dropbox, any of those tools that a lot of people are using out there. And what's great then is when the recipient gets it, they can view it, and they can view it more or less as you intended it to be viewed. And then they can mark it up, and you can use it to exchange information. You can kind of collaborate and communicate on a project. And as Stan mentioned, there are other web-based solutions being provided by Autodesk 360 and some others for commenting on your DWFs. So let's take a look at...
Well, and I might mention, Michael, that one of the best things about Design Review is that it's free.
It is absolutely free.
And anything free from Autodesk, take advantage of.
And while I'm speaking of downloading, it's available from the website. Those of you who are switching to the 2014 suites, which are all, I think, almost all out now, you might notice that there is no Design Review 2014 as of yet. We don't really know. We're not sure what that'll be updated because it's available for download for free. We assume at some point it would be available there when the update's available. But I have tested it. 2014 output, DWF output from 2014 products does work in Design Review 2013. I haven't seen any issues there. So let's take a look first at outputting a DWF from AutoCAD. We have a couple options for outputting the DWF. A lot of people are comfortable with and have long used the plotting tools, the plot dialog in AutoCAD. So we can use the plot dialog to create PDFs, or I'm sorry, DWFs here. We can also make PDFs now. And all we have to do is here in the, there we go. In the plot dialog, we just select a printer that will output DWF. And you might see that there's one called DWF6 and one called DWFX. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between these two. For 2D output, it's pretty much the same. You're not going to see much change here. And actually, for viewing things in Design Review itself, you're not going to see much difference between these two. The major difference is that this DWFX, you notice there it says XPS compatible. You might think back, or remember back to 2007 when Microsoft Office created a new file extension called DOCX, XLSX. It put that X at the end of everything. It's XPS compatible, meaning now we have the ability to view those files within Internet Explorer. That is the whole purpose here, and I'll try to get to that here later on. I'll show one of these DWFXs, meaning if somebody receives the file, they don't have Design Review yet loaded on their computer, they can open up Internet Explorer, go to File, Open, and with a little switching around, they can actually open the DWFX and view it and mark it up and get all the tools they need inside of Internet Explorer. There are also, I just discovered, preparing for this webinar, that there are plugins for viewing DWFX in Chrome and Firefox. I did not get a chance to download those and test them out, but for those of you who prefer to use Chrome or Firefox, there are plugins for viewing DWFX in those browsers as well. So when we select one of these printers, what's nice about the plot dialog is that we're all comfortable with this for the most part. We know how to apply things like page scaling, other CTBs. If you want to switch to a different CTB, we can switch our page size, things like that. We're all familiar with those things. And then once you are all set up, just go ahead and hit OK, just like you would plot, and like you would plot a PDF. Select the location you would like to save it to. I'm just going to overwrite one I already have here. And it just outputs a DWF. It's now in my folder. The other option we have for outputting our DWF from AutoCAD is to actually export it. So if I go to the Output tab on the ribbon, over here we have this Export button. It has a little paper airplane on it. And we see we have DWFX and DWF available there as well. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this side of the output of DWFs. I do want to mention, though, that we can actually come in here and make changes to the output settings. And let's see here. Right here, when we click on this button, let me hover on it for a second. It'll pop up here. So when we hover on this, we click on this button, Export to DWF PDF Options. When you select that, it's going to pull up a dialog box that gives you a few options that you can modify. The main thing I wanted to point out is this right here. Let me resize it a little bit. This option right here is called Layer Information, and you see it's set to include currently. And this is true for actually DWF and PDFs. I don't know if everybody realizes this, but PDFs actually support AutoCAD layers now as well. But we're outputting a DWF, and I can tell it whether or not to include the layer information. It only includes the layers which are currently visible on my screen. So if you have any information that has been frozen or turned off, it's not going to include those layers. You don't have to worry about somebody turning on a layer they were never intended to view. This is just telling it whether or not to include the layer information of the line work currently visible here on my sheet. When we get to Design Review, then I can hide or show each of those layers as I see fit.
And keep in mind that this, when Michael here is talking about AutoCAD, basically he's talking about any of the AutoCAD-based programs, so AutoCAD Civil 3D, AutoCAD Map, AutoCAD Architecture, and so forth. Now, there may be some quirks in those programs just based on the extended capability of them that is a little different, but in general, AutoCAD-based programs use these techniques that Michael's talking about right now.
And just quickly switching over to Revit. In Revit, we export DWF and DWFX here. So you go up to the application menu, go down to export, and there's your DWF, DWFX. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time focusing on this. I'm going to talk a little bit more, because this is pretty straightforward, really. I'm going to talk more about bringing it back in, doing a round trip on that when the time comes.
We got a note here from one of the people saying that they had lost the sound. Now, my asking you to hit your hand button if the sound is lost is not going to do us any good, I don't suppose. But nonetheless, could you, if you can hear us, please hit your hand button there and let us know?
Yeah, it looks like we're still transmitting.
Yeah,
so
it looks like we're okay, so maybe that person just lost it by themselves.
All right, so let's switch over now. I'm going to go ahead and open up Design Review. So I happen to be looking at the same file that I had output here from, taking a little bit of time here. Got a little bit of lag, it looks like, on our internet connection. So there we go. So this is Design Review. This is the sheet I had to output from Revit. I can open up, let's open up another here, Classroom Wing DWFX. So this is the one I output from AutoCAD a moment ago. And, you know, for the most part, it's great for viewing. It's really straightforward. Right now what I have, though, this is just a single sheet DWF. I guess I didn't, that was the other thing I should have mentioned earlier, is that we can output multiple or multi-sheet DWF from either AutoCAD, well, from many of the sources that output DWF. So if you're using Sheet Set Manager, those of you using Sheet Set Manager in AutoCAD, it's worth noting that you can, when you output that sheet set, that it can output to individual DWF files or to a multi-page or multi-sheet. So they're all gathered together over here. And we would see those here on the Thumbnails tab over here on the left. We would see all of the various sheets listed out here. And I'll show you later how we can actually take individual DWF files. I keep saying PDF. That's bad, I think.
It is.
DWF. We can actually combine them. This is another little trick that I sort of discovered by mistake. It's in the documentation, but I discovered it accidentally, that we can combine DWFs using Design Review. So here we are. We're in Design Review. Now let's take a look at the cool tools we have available inside of Design Review. I'm going to just give a quick tour of the interface. There is a Home tab here on the ribbon. There's you know, a few options in here for switching out, pulling information from a place called Autodesk Seek. It's a website, pulling in tools to symbols and that kind of thing. But for the most part, what we're mostly interested here in the interface here is the Markup and Measure tab on the ribbon. So we'll look at that here in a second. We also have some palettes over here on the left, and clear over here on the right, there's a few palettes. Apparently I did not include my layers with this one. I thought I had turned that on. Oh, I guess I didn't finish that process. But here's where you would find the layers over here on the right. You hover on this button and you will get your layers listed here. And all you have is the ability to show or hide. You can't actually change any of the properties like color, but you can actually change the visibility. We also have on the left, and we'll see in a little bit, there's a Markups tab. That will allow us to view the markups as we create them. And we'll see this information in here. You see there are markup properties, or here there's basically this properties palette down here at the bottom. So let's take a look at some of the markup and measuring tools that are available. And I should know this is a 2D. Obviously this is a 2D DWF. If there's time at the end, I'll show that we can also open 3D DWFs, and there's some navigation tools here on this navigation bar at the top of the drawing area, the viewing area. So let's take a look at the markup tools. We have here on the Markup and Measure tab of the ribbon a formatting panel. We have a callouts panel. We have a draw panel, measure panel, and stamps and symbols. The first thing we can take a look at is the callouts. We'll see when you hover on those, you get little tool tips that pop up. Rectangle callout with polycloud. There's a circle callout with polycloud. So as you click on these, once you click on them, you see your formatting panel becomes activated, where you can do things like change the line weight right here. Come on, just run a little slow. We can change the line weight of the cloud that we're about to draw. We can change the color of the cloud. Let's go ahead and do red. And then you get tiny, tiny little crosshairs in your drawing area. And because I did a poly cloud, this is going to allow me to draw just that, a polygonal poly cloud. And because I selected the rectangular call out here, it then lets me create a text box. And then I can do my formatting up here. Select maybe a large text size. Then you can give your design staff all of the cryptic notes you like. So we can type a note in there, and when we're done, we just simply click outside of the box there. And it creates this vector base, which is nice because it's really crisp and easy to read. Creates a little poly cloud, and we see over here, while it's still selected, I can actually view the properties over on the left. Now what's nice about this versus other solutions for marking up electronic printing is that these are editable objects. Do a little zooming. I should note too, you can also zoom and pan just like you can in AutoCAD. So we can actually come in here and adjust the sizes of things to format things exactly as we'd like to see them. Whoops. And we can actually relocate that if maybe you need to make a change. You see it basically behaves like a intelligent entity there. We also have tools for creating rectangular polyclouds. We can just make little keynotes if we like. More text. Obviously, we need to make changes here to formatting. We have tools for actually just drawing in. If maybe we decide we need to draw in line work, we can draw things over here like lines. And below that we have polylines. So if I wanted to click, and here's what's really cool about using Design Review, zooming in here, is that it's subtle. You can kind of see that little blip there at my crosshairs. Because this was an output from a Autodesk product, from AutoCAD in this case, Design Review actually detects the vector line work, meaning I can snap to it. So you see that little dot means I'm actually snapping to an endpoint there. And in a second, let me zoom in a little bit. Kind of locked me out of my zoom for a second. I could come in here and I've decided I actually need a green line here. Let's change the color. Then I can add additional notes. I can draw polylines. Just draw this one out in empty space. And it snaps back to it, so if it will close it. There is a freehand sketch tool right here that will allow me again to just make freehand sketches of whatever I might want to circle around. There's a rectangle tool, so it's really easy to create a rectangular box around things. There's an ellipse tool, and there's a text tool here. So text tool works like we're familiar with in other applications. Draw your text window, and you can type in whatever you need to do. Dated. And what's cool is that once this text is here, if you realize that's not actually very easy to read, you can go ahead and select it and use your formatting panel to make the changes you need. Maybe you want to actually change the color as well. Now, as we're creating all these, well, actually, let me hold off. Let me show you a few of the other cool tools. There's a highlighting tool here. I'm hovering, waiting here for it to pop up. So there's a rectangular highlight tool that was located right here. And again, you get formatting options. What color do you want to highlight? You can draw a sort of translucent box over it. parts of your drawing. And then there are polyclouds or clouds here without the little leaders and notes on them. So if you wanted to, you can actually just draw a revision cloud without a specific piece of text attached to it. So that's a really quick way to throw down a cloud. The last, the next panel over here is measure.
We will be getting to a 3D model here shortly.
The questions about?
Oh, that's a gentleman has said he would like to see a 3D model in this session, so we will.
Okay.
We will get to that shortly when we get to the Revit stuff.
So we also have stamps. This is a common question here. Well, actually, let's look at the measuring tools. So over here we have a length, and now we have, I believe in 2013 they introduced, I believe angles was something people have been waiting for. But
right.
The length tool is really nice too because it also will snap. Notice here, let me do a little slower here so the GoToMeeting can catch up. Notice here I get that little circle, that little dot again at my crosshairs. So Design Review is actually snapping to the entities inside of my drawing. It's detecting that vector line work again. And it gives this report here saying about, it gives me a little tilde there, approximately 23 foot, 6.0 inches. So there's another common question is, well, you know, that's great, 23 foot, 6.0. Who uses, you know, in that building realm, we don't use decimal inches. So in order to adjust that, we do have to go to the Measure panel and click the little drop down beneath it, and we get this option right here, which is 2D units and scale. Now, when I click that, what I get is a drawing units, and this is usually, let me go to catch up here again. There we go. There's feet and inches. Then it's what's great about outputting this a DWF from an Autodesk program is that it's built to look at Autodesk files, so it understands scale, it understands units. So hopefully, typically, this is going to work just fine. It'll automatically detect what it should be using here. Down here, though, we have display units, and this is where, under the length list, we're going to be selecting here feet in fractional inches, if that's what you work with. You can also choose feet in decimal inches or just feet, if you like. So it'll be decimal feet. This is I'm working in a building, so I'm going to choose feet in fractional inches. And then your angle here, you can decide how you're going to display degrees or radians. I don't know anybody uses radians. As opposed to, you know, it'd be nice to have degrees, minutes, seconds, and that kind of thing. But it's, you know, other options here. But that's what we have. So I'm going to hit OK on that. It does then, in fact, change some of the displayed dimensions, and there we go. You see, we'll only go horizontally. We see now we're getting fractional inches instead of decimal inches. You can also format these as well if you wanted to change. Maybe you want to use blue dimensions to denote certain kinds of information you're creating. You can switch the colors of these. Now, I do want to point something out. This particular sheet, I specifically plotted this sheet because it had 3 viewports on it. And we noticed that one of these viewports right here is scaled to 1/8 inch equals a foot. And the other viewports are scaled to 1/4 inch equals a foot, I see down here at the bottom. This is the other great thing about Design Review versus other PDF reviewing options is that Design Review will actually detect scale. So you see when I scale a door here at 1/8 inch, it says, hey, that's a 3-foot door. When I come down here to my, actually let me scale the exact same door here inside the stairwell. There's my 3-foot door at 1/8 inch equals a foot. When I come down to my 1/4 inch scale viewport, you can see the scale down here at the bottom. When I scale or I measure that exact same door, it understands the scale and will adjust the dimension for me. I don't have to now worry about, man, did they really actually scale that viewport properly? it doesn't even matter. Even if I hadn't applied a true real-world scale, I could have left this, maybe somebody accidentally activated the viewport and bumped their scroll wheel on the mouse and went ahead and plotted. If you're using design review, it doesn't matter. It still says it understands the scale and will report back. In fact, I think this viewport over here is intentionally set to the wrong scale in my for teaching purposes. You see it pulls back, and there's a 6 foot 1 1/32. Obviously, that's why the little tilde's there, because as long as it's approximate. But it doesn't care about the actual scale. It just overrides that and will measure the true scale. You can also measure area. You can measure along polylines. You can measure angles now here in Design Review. So the last panel here up at the top is our stamps and symbols. So there are stamp options now. This is also new to 2013. So if you haven't used Design Review in a while, you might check it out again. This is one thing that was pretty popular, was being demanded. These are actually, these stamps, they're dynamic. This is what's really nice about this, is if I need to put on here a particular piece of information, we can create a stamp, and you see here in this case what it's doing is pulling my username and applying a date and time. And this is, the information is dynamic in that it pulls the information for today. Some of the other stamps pull different information. Once it's placed, though, it's kind of static. So they're intelligent and they pull information in. And what's nice is that they're also editable. You can change the size. You've got these grips, so I can change this, and they're dynamic in that regard. You can also rotate it if you would like to make it really. Come on. Got to get this little rotate handle here at the top. There we go. There's a few other stamps. There's a pretty good list built in here. There's approved for review. This is a good one too. Sometimes you might want to slap this in here. Not for construction. Everybody always likes to use this one too. The rejected. That's a good one. So if you are, if you do need to track some of this, and you make sure people are absolutely aware. And because these are being tracked, it does understand. I can select and delete. These are lockable, meaning that other users, when they view this DWF, won't have access to it. You can lock it down so they can't just say, let's delete that and go ahead and print this and use it anyway. Common question is, can we create custom stamps? If you want to create a specific one for your shop drawings or something like that, and the answer right now is that you cannot create stamps. There is no method yet for creating your own custom stamps for Design Review. However, we have over here, we have symbols.
Sean, yes, this is being recorded, and it will be on our YouTube page in the next week or so, I'm sure. So you can find it in the events archives page of our website.
So we can actually create catalogs. I just realized that was on my to-do list. I didn't actually create any catalogs. I don't know if time will allow. That's one of the more advanced things. It might be something people are interested in. But you can actually create catalog from your files. So a common purpose might be, basically what this lets you do is create a group of symbols by pulling the block information from the DWF. So if you receive a drawing that you maybe need to do a layout of furniture or something like that, you can actually pull the block information, create symbols, and then place them back in. So if you create a block in AutoCAD, print the DWF, you can sort of use it like a stamp, but it's actually called a symbol here. So you can then open your symbol libraries, and you can also create symbols using some of the information which you've created, some of your markups and that kind of thing. I didn't actually build a catalog yet. I realized to show here how that might be used, but it is possible to create catalogs, and you can share those catalogs also, so other people can get a catalog of blocks, essentially, that instead of putting them directly into AutoCAD, they get placed into the DWF as a symbol, and later on we'll see that we could then view those in AutoCAD. If somebody else then it's intended for them to actually place the working live block into the CAD file, or Revit for that matter.
Brad, yes. Your question, comment is, so we should be able to create DWF from a DWG, then also mark it up to draw attention to certain areas for pending comment it, save it, and send it out to reply and comment. Correct, that's correct. And that's why we prefer to guide people towards the DWF view or the design review rather than PDF. Not that PDF is a bad thing at all, and we know it's far more popular, but design review when you're working with Autodesk files gives you much more versatility. We will get to some 3D stuff here just to show you that, and you also can bring these changes back in and then track them in the AutoCAD drawing, which I'm sure Michael's going to lead to here shortly. So.
Yeah, so we'll talk about bringing these through, and then so let me show you before we're done working in here, and I could over here on the left side, if I had multiple sheets, I could, by clicking here on the thumbnails, I could go and mark up sheet after sheet after sheet here. But we see on the markups, when I select the markups tab on this panel, it's over here on the left, or in that panel, it's giving me a list of the markups which I have created. And when I select those from the list on the left, or by selecting them right here in the drawing, you click on one of these polylines here on the left, it's going to, over here, show me the properties for that. There are labels. I can give that a label. I can name it something that might be recognizable to the recipient. You see there's a status option right here. We'll come back and look at that in a little bit. And I can add notes. This is the critical thing here. This is what's really helpful, because if you're not going to have the ability, or maybe you're not, you're sending this to multiple people, you can come in here and make a note and say, hey, this is, John is responsible for taking care of this. Or you can write out sort of a narrative as to what that symbol is to represent. So I'm going to actually go through them. I'm going to select a few of these. I'm going to clean mine up a little bit. I'm going to select some of these markups and delete them. I'm just using my delete key to get rid of these. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to simplify this for transferring here in a little bit. You see there are dimensions that show up as well. They show up as markups. It's just the way that it tracks them. And when you click on them, this is also nice. When you click on each of the markups, it actually zooms you to that. So if you do have a long list of these, and I'm like, wow, what was line 1? What did I draw there? Oh, okay. I'm going to label that. Let's change that to material change here. We'll put the label on there and make a note. VCT to carpet. There we go. I can add a note over here on the left, so the recipient again understands what my intent of the line is. I don't have to get on the phone and spend half an hour walking through each markup by markup. So we've created some markups here real quick. I'm going to delete just a couple more real fast so that it's faster. When you're done working, making these markups, you have a couple options. You can come up here and save up on the quick access toolbar, and it's actually going to overwrite this file. This one's called classroomwing.dwfx. It'll save it to that same file. This is, I guess, a conversation for your team. How are you going to iterate these things? Are you going to overwrite it and send it right back? Are you going to do here in the application menu a save as instead and give this a unique name? It depends also on the way that you're exchanging this data. If you're using Buzzsaw, things like that, you might keep the same name but use Revolt or any of the collaboration and document exchange tools. You might just create a new folder for the marked up. I'm going to call mine Classroom Wing Markup and hit save. It saves this as a DWF. Now, and that would be true if this was output from AutoCAD or any of the, or Revit or any of the Autodesk products. You just do a save as. So let's take a look at then round tripping that back to AutoCAD. So let me switch to AutoCAD here. I'm going to give it a second to catch up. So when we're back in AutoCAD, this is what's the really fantastic. This is where we really significantly diverge from the capabilities of PDF. We can, back in the originating application, view those markups. The recipient of the DWF, the person who's supposed to take care of these red lines, does not have to print the piece of paper. They don't have to view it side by side, the DWF on the right and AutoCAD on the left of their monitor. Here in AutoCAD, I can go to the View tab, and on the Palettes panel, up here in the upper right, there's this little button that's called Markup Set Manager. Markup Set. I had a student named Mark one time, and we were joking that it was making Markup Set. Anyway, you click Markup Set Manager. You can also type the command markup. It opens up a palette. We're pretty used to palettes in AutoCAD now. It's a non-modal, meaning it stays open until we close it, and it's going to be blank. It's going to be blank at first, and this is going to work a little bit like Sheet Set Manager for those of you familiar with Sheet Set Manager. So what we have to do up here at the top first is click Open, come down the list and select Open, and go browse then to the folder in which the DWF is contained. So again, if you receive this as an email, you're going to have to save it somewhere where you can access it. You see there is actually, I'm using, by the way, I'm using AutoCAD 2014 here, so those of you who have not yet seen this, you know, wow, right? There's some new features you'll notice up here, tabs and things like that. Other thing you're going to notice is that now it's no longer the cloud. It's called Autodesk 360 on the left. So if you are using the Autodesk Cloud solutions, it's called 360 over here. But I'm going to grab my
Because
Classroom
what would
Wing.
life be without name changes?
Yeah, and a new logo.
Yeah.
Classroom Wing Markup. There's the DWF I just created. And I hit Open. And of course I forgot to close. So let me take a second here. Let me close this DWF, which I currently have open, and then I can actually open it not as read-only back in AutoCAD. So let me try it one more time. Open, Classroom Wing Markup, open, and what happens is that it displays that information here in the Markup Set Manager, and it would actually list multiple sheets here. Classroom Wing is the only layout which I exported and marked up, so that's the only one that displays here in the list. And you can view the markups if you like. You can actually go through and click them and view the details down here below. What was the one I created? Markup, material change, there we go. And I can view this information here, one of which is right here. There's my notes. M. Calkins made the note, VCT to carpet, and it's called material change, so I can understand what that means. But you see, I'm not noticing it over here in my drawing yet. What you can do is just double-click on one of these markups, and give it a second. All the markups will then appear on the sheet here in AutoCAD. This is what's great, is that it actually pulls those through and overlays them on my layout.
And if you were in Revit, it would do the same thing in Revit.
Correct. So there it is. There is my set of markups, and I can go through and view these. And again, if I click on, let's go to my material change. Let's zoom out. And if I double-click on material change over here in the Markup Set Manager, it zooms me to that automatically. And I can view it here. And if I realize, hey, you know, okay, I understand that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm doing this over a layout. You know, I'll switch over to model space. I'll go ahead and make the change. And I can pick up all these changes. I'll go through and make the edits or review. And when I'm done working with these, I can select each of these from the Markup Set Manager. And we'll see here that the very first option under Details is Markup Status. And it's set to none when you first pull your markup in. And when you click that drop-down list, you're going to have a few options. You can leave it set to none. Maybe you just didn't get to it, and your manager's asking to see that, or whoever the viewer is. They want to see it now, so you just leave it set to none. You didn't get to it. You can set it to question. If you set it to question, you can come down here and type a note at the bottom and say, I don't understand what you mean. You didn't, you just said make better. Great. Good manager speak.
Well, hey.
Yeah, make pretty. You have a question. Switch the status to question, and you see it shows a little question mark here above. When you do, though, when you have gone in and you've pick up the change, you can either say for review, so when the recipient gets it, it's going to show up as for review to make sure that they know they need to take a look at it, maybe approve it. You can also switch it to done. Maybe it was a pretty straightforward, hey, yep, I've realized I missed the note, VCT to carpet, material change or whatever. Switch it to done, and it puts a check mark next to it. Let me go and make one of each of these for review. So I've got question, for review, material change, and I'm just going to go ahead and select each of these and mark them as done. And maybe that was dimension, so no big deal. And we'll switch the rejected to for review. And each of these, you can make a note for each of these, and it will show up here in the list then as whoever the new, the other recipient's login name is. Mine will just show my own name back and forth. When you are done working with the markup in AutoCAD, what we need to do then is republish this markup set. And we click here up on the Markup Set Manager, this little print icon, printer icon. You see Republish has republished all sheets or markup sheets. All sheets would say, well, I printed a set with 12 sheets, or maybe I printed all of the layouts here and I only marked up 1 or 2. It would still publish all of them again. So now I have a coherent full package, full set of DWFs. You can also say I only need to send back the ones that the original, the markup, the person who made the red lines, they only want to see the ones which I marked up or made changes. So again, it asks us to save that. And we just give it a name. So let's say Classroom Wing Revised 04/30/13. Last day of April already.
It is.
So here's what's going on. It's going to give me a little balloon at the bottom. Plot and publish. Oh, sorry, that was the last one. Let me give it a second. There we go. It's going to give me this. It's coming. There it is. Your printing and publishing job is processing in the background. If you've ever used Publish tools, it's the same thing. It's going to keep working. I'm going to hit close. So AutoCAD is working in the background right now. And if you look down on the status bar, there's a little plotter icon that pops up right there. And if you keep an eye on that, it's going to show a little piece of paper feeding out. It's telling you that it's working in the background, meaning I can go ahead and keep working here in AutoCAD. So what I'm going to do is click here on the Markup Set Manager. Sorry, that works a little different. I'm going to right-click on Classroom Wing and say Close Markup, and it disappears from the lists. And the markups will then disappear from AutoCAD, but it's still working. Oh, it looks like it finished. For some reason, outputting the markup after you've imported it into AutoCAD and outputting it again, it does take a little bit longer than printing the DWF the first time. All right, let's go back one more time then to Design Review. And I'm going to click the Open and Browse. And there is my Classroom Wing Revised 04/30/13. And I'm going to open that and see what we get. So this is, again, we've gone from AutoCAD to Design Review, marked up, back to AutoCAD. Now we're returning to Design Review. Give it a second to open up here. And you'll notice now that my markups are still visible, obviously, but they look a little different. They're colored here. They're color-coded. So here is my material change. Remember, I marked that one as done, so it's going to yellow it out. This is what's so great, is that it actually yellows out like we're used to doing with red lines if it's marked as done. But over here on the left, we can actually see
once again, I want to stress here that, if you were working in Revit, I mean, I know have worked in AutoCAD up to this point, but if you were working in Revit, these same things would happen in a Revit model back and forth.
Yeah.
So there would be no difference there. So take that away from
it. Yeah, when it comes back, then it understands these pieces of information. So we'll see here. Here's that Make Better note, and it selects it over here. And if I zoom in on that one, I can see that it's highlighted in green. So that's the default settings. It shows questions as green. It shows markups which have been marked as done as yellow, and anything else is just left. Well, let's see if I can find one. That one's done. Everything else is just left untouched. It just shows up as it originally did. So if I select that markup, I can take a look at it, and I see that it's just the status is still left to none. Nothing's been done with it. So if I look at it and say, oh, yeah, I can still mark these as done. I can add more markups here. I can, come on, taking a little time here. I guess it doesn't highlight that. Maybe I didn't realize it didn't highlight the, doesn't yellow out the dimensions. But now we can see, we can take a look and see exactly what has been completed. If everything is good, if I'm happy with all the changes that my draftsperson or the recipient of this or whoever was supposed to do the work, if they did all the work I intended for them to do, we can come in here and we can either approve it, whatever we need to do. Give them a call and say, yep, thumbs up, everything's good, go ahead and print the full set. And we also have the ability to, and why am I suddenly blanking on this? I do this, done this a few times now. Here it is on the Home tab, because it's about the only thing I use on the Home tab typically. There's this Show Markups button right here. It's all check mark. Oh, come on. Uncheck that. So if we're happy with the results, we can uncheck Show Markups. Those markups no longer display on the DWF, meaning I can now output it. If I actually needed to print this now out in the field, if I didn't need a hard copy, I can output it without the markups displaying. Just quickly, over here in Revit, the way that we would pull in, so I'll switch over to Revit now, I promise. There it is.
There it is.
The way that we actually pull in DWFs into Revit is on the Insert tab. We have DWF Markup, and this will behave a little different. Let me do this. Behaves a little different than AutoCAD. We just go browse for our markup, and I believe this is the one I did create a markup in. Go and select it and open, and select the view which you wanted to apply this to. This is the only one I did, and it pulls through right there my cloud in this case. That's all I've made in this particular DWF because I had output one from Revit. Now I'm just round tripping it back to Revit. And we'll see here that I can select that cloud and it'll be pinned. It's hard to see it right there, but there's a little pin. This is a pinned object. But we still can come in here and we can make changes like, say, for review or done, similar to what we could do in AutoCAD. Yeah, so it's a pinned element, meaning I can't move it. It's not going to allow me to move it. Now, actually, cool feature for those of you who hasn't had time to play around with Revit 2014 now. It's only been out about a week. There's ability here to click this button at the bottom and say whether or not you can actually click pinned elements. So just so you know, you can turn that off and you won't be able to select your red lines. But again, then you can export your DWF, and I'm trying to hurry because we're kind of running short on time. But if you want to get rid of the DWF, this is the difference here. If you want to get rid of the markups in Revit, the way that Revit handles markups is actually as if they're a link. So we come up here again on the Insert tab, Manage Links, and we'll see that there is a DWF Markups tab, and all of the linked DWFs will get listed here. You can select it and unload at the bottom or remove, just like a CAD or Revit link. Remove it and it's gone. Disappears from the view. So DWF works, and again, this will work in other AutoCAD, Autodesk applications as well. But just really quickly, I want to show that there are tools there in Revit and AutoCAD. A couple other tricks I did want to show back here in.
Do you have a 3D model you can open?
I do have one I can open real quick. I didn't really get a chance. I'm not even sure. What did I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't. So this is an actual 3D DWF. This was output from Revit. One quick note: orbiting here, you might want to use your view cube for navigation up here in the upper right. That seems to be taking a really long time to send out that information. It's coming. There it is. So this is a true 3D DWF. There are 3D elements. You can actually select You can select here.
Sorry for the lag. It's apparently our internet speed is really clunky today for some reasons.
Yeah, so we have some navigation tools. We have a constrained orbit tool here. You can actually select items in the Revit model, the 3D model, and view different kinds of properties over here. So there's more stuff we can use here. There are actually 3D measuring tools then we can use. There are section tools. If you go to the Tools tab, you see we can actually create sections on the 3D Tools panel over here. So, you know, that might actually be something maybe we do a special webinar just solely devoted
Probably
to
would be a good one.
DWF, yeah. Yeah, because it occurred to me after I kind of put this together as a 2D workflow that when I saw the attendee list that we're probably going to have a lot of Revit users in 3D modeling. So, yeah, I didn't get a chance to really build any tools for displaying that or any of the data for showing that off. So keep an eye out. We'll try and do something, a special webinar just on that topic. It's also good to know about 3D DWF because you can use those 3D views in like QTO and things like that.
QTO is Autodesk Quantity Takeoff product. It's kind of a accounting tool that, not an accounting tool, a counting tool that links with things like Timberline and so forth that will allow you to very quickly disseminate and do a count or an estimate of elements in the Revit drawing. So if you're trying to do estimating and so forth, it's pretty slick little tool.
So I'm going to show you one thing here. One little trick I did want to show is that if you have multiple DWFs, maybe somebody sent you, you know, maybe you're aggregating files from multiple consultants. You've got DWFs from a structural, from a civil, from your other consultants, along with your architecturals or whatever you might have. One quick trick here I want to get in before everybody has to move on is you can open up multiple sessions of design review, view those two. Let me open up a second session. This is how I usually like to do it anyway. And once you have design review open, you can view each of those DWFs. Let me open one over here. What do I have? Revit Sample, Classroom Wing Revised. So we'll see then, I'm going to dock these two side by side. So on my left here I have my Classroom Wing DWF. On the right I have my 3D view of a completely different project. But a cool little trick is if you get these side by side, you can drag and drop. So see my little cursor right here with that symbol. I can drag and drop one or multiple layouts from one DWF to another DWF. That's all it takes. You can also, if you like, I believe you can select it and do Control-C. Let me try that again. I believe there's a way you can actually copy and paste those. There's a copy current view. I'm trying to remember where the clipboard resides. But I usually drag and drop. That's actually, I kind of discovered that by mistake. I drag and drop the individual sheets. You can also then drag and drop to change the order of, let me try this way. There we go. You can change the order of the sheets. So if you're like me, you typically will print one of these and never fails. You open up the DWF and you discover that all the, you know, all your sheets are out of order because you forgot to change the sheet name or whatever it is if you're not using Sheet Set Manager. So you can drag and drop to change the order of your views of the layouts within your DWF. And then when you save it, it will save in those other layouts as part of the DWF. So great tool for aggregating DWFs from multiple sources. You can also, another quick trick I wanted to show, so we're running short on time, I wanted to show that you can open PDFs in Design Review. So right here I have my Classroom Wing PDF, and I'm going to click Open. Okay, and there we go. It actually will open a PDF file. Why would I want to do that? You know, I already have Acrobat Reader or whatever it is. That works fine, right? Well, what's cool about this is notice that my markup and measure tools are still accessible. So if you're really comfortable and familiar, now that you've attended this webinar, with using the tools, the markup and measure tools in Design Review, but one of your one of your contractors or your consultants only uses PDF, only sends PDF, guess what? You can still come in here and use the markup tools over the top of your PDF. There we go. So I've created a cloud. And if you want to, you can save this now. If you hit save, it's not going to actually save as PDF. It's going to convert it to a DWF. But if you have a printing printer, so we use Bluebeam. I have Bluebeam, but any of your PDF printers, you can use those to output another PDF with the markups. They're not going to be as intelligent as they are, obviously, using DWF, but you can mark the thing up just like you're familiar with in Design Review over the top of a PDF now, and they never have to worry about using DWF. If they refuse to download and use Design Review, then great, go ahead and keep using your PDFs. That's a great workflow too. Actually, a lot of people tell me that's exactly what they're going to have to do with some of their consultants out there that have a PDF workflow, and that's all they'll provide.
So we've got a few questions here. Can the markup show in the view or only the sheet paper space? And what that's referring to is the 3D view that we had open. So if you have a markup and it reflects on a wall and you're spinning that around, does say the cloud or the comment show in the 3D?
You have to lock the view. You have to capture the view, and then you can mark over the top. And that's one thing. I just realized I didn't get to the point of actually locking down the view and making the markup, but you can actually make markups over 3D views in the DWF. So I'll add that to the list. We'll try and do something here soon, maybe on the 3D DWF. I get more of a Revit focused workflow on that.
Dave, can the Civil 3D 2014 surfaces into a DWF? I don't know for sure. Let me ask Brian Haley and see if he can research that for you. I'll make sure I make a note here.
Yeah, and there was a question, can DWF files be open in Acrobat Reader for viewing? So I don't believe they can. I guess I haven't tried that, and specifically in Reader, I have not tried that. What can be done, and I alluded to this earlier, you can actually open, and I don't use Explorer, I typically use Firefox, but let me open Internet Explorer, and let me just show this last thing here before everybody has to go. I'm opening up Internet Explorer here, and we'll see that we can, and this is, looks like I got upgraded. This is why I don't use.
Don't you love that?
There we go. So let me think about this. If I got to figure out how to open things here now. Well, looks like I upgraded to the newest version of Internet Explorer. So wherever you can find your file open, wherever that now resides. Wow, I'm kind of drawing a blank on how to. There it is. File. That is not what I want. So yeah, in Internet Explorer, you can actually click File and Open if you do have your file menu shown. Hey, there we go. File. And go to Open. And what you have to do here is when you browse, you're going to have to click down here at the bottom, All Files. And we'll see that, hang on a second. Nobody look. I'm clicking through my file structure here. Webinar stuff, Design Review. Here are my DWF X's. I can click DWF X and hit Open. And OK, and with a little bit of delay, eventually it'll pop open that DWF X inside of Internet Explorer. And here's what's great is, look at that. There are my tools up at the top on the ribbon, just like we saw in Design Review. So again, you can download plugins if you do use Firefox or Chrome. I can't speak directly to them. I haven't had a chance to download them. I only just discovered that they were available. But there are options for getting these same tools inside of the other browsers that are out there. But we do get our same markup tools that were available in Design Review right here in Internet Explorer. So if you don't have Reader available, or if you only have Reader available and you receive the DWF, you can walk through pulling it into Internet Explorer. If you're using Windows, you've probably got Internet Explorer loaded on there.
Okay, we got to the end of our webinar here. We've got a few questions. Let's try and get through those here. Alan asks, we may not be able to get to all your questions. If you have an Apple iPad, go download the Design Review app on the iPad store, the Apple store.
It's actually not called Design Review. What's happened is that a few months ago, Autodesk decided to roll over Design Review into what's now called Autodesk 360. So there are DWF viewing tools in Autodesk 360. At this time, we do not actually have these markup and measure tools, which I'll be the first to say is really unfortunate. There's a community out there for Autodesk 360. There's a forum out there. You can post your thoughts on that subject there if you've been using this on an iPad. So currently the best we can do is actually view sheets and make comments on those sheets in Design Review on the iPad. So that's where that stands right now. So you'll be looking for Autodesk 360 in the App Store.
Okay, that's good to know. It's not a bad little app though, really. It's just not as full featured. Can comments created in Design Review 2013 be imported to Revit 2012 or older versions?
I'm sorry to say I can't answer that question. I haven't actually tried a DWF made in a newer version to pull it back into 2012. It should. If you've seen something different, let me know. We can experiment with that a little bit.
But you're not really using a Revit file, but
yeah. So if you're outputting it from 2012
you just
to
create
DWF
an
and then back in, it should be fine. I think it should work.
And then can a stylus be used to redline Design Reviewer? I would think that if you have a style, again, we don't have the stylus around here like a Wacom or something, but I assume if you have one, you can.
Yeah, if you're talking about like one of those, the Wacom or the bamboo tablets or something like that, I assume that it would work the same way that the stylus works in other graphics applications that require mouse clicks. So, that's actually, you've given us an excuse to ask the boss to get us one of those now.
Yeah.
So we can play around with it. But again, because we don't have those redlining tools on the iPad now, if you're talking about using a stylus on an iPad, unfortunately, no, we don't have that functionality. That's an app limitation, not an app limitation of the tablet itself.
All right, that's all the time we have. We've kept you a little long, but hopefully it was a worthwhile seminar for you today, and we appreciate your attendance. Thank you very much, and it will be recorded and will be on our website in the next few days. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody.